Around Town is brought to you by Eastern North Carolina Medical Group. Good health is music to our ears. With office locations at 1041 Noel Lane, Suite 105 in Rocky Mount, 10589 East NC Highway 97 in Joiners Crossing Shopping Center in Rocky Mount, 155 Nashville Commons Drive in the Food Line Shopping Center Plaza in Nashville, North Carolina, 1812 Glendale Avenue, Suite B in Wilson, North Carolina, 903 North Arundel Drive in Zebulon, North Carolina, as well as the ENCMG Lewisburg Oncology Clinic at 216 North Beckett Boulevard, Suite 5 in Lewisburg, North Carolina. Log on to encmg.com today to locate the office nearest you.
Welcome to Around Town, and we are in an examining room at Eastern North Carolina Medical Group. Delighted to be speaking with Dr. Dan Crocker. You're more recognizable than I am. I mean, you could have opened the show. And Mr. Sean Epps, a physician's assistant who's been here a long time. You don't look that old, but you have been here a long time. Very, very seasoned in what you do. But we want to learn about the history of Eastern North Carolina Medical Group, Dr. Crocker, I believe in 2004, but you are triple credentialed. You have brought a lot of talent, but why did you decide you wanted to begin this entity?
Well, there were three physicians that started Eastern North Carolina Medical Group actually in May of 2000. And at the time, we were part of another clinic in the community and decided we wanted to branch out on our own. And so Eastern North Carolina Medical Group started. And I'm the one remaining of the three, but since that time, we have been fortunate to add additional physicians. We have 6, and we have 14 mid-levels, I think, 3 nurse practitioners and 11 physician assistants, Sean being one of those physician assistants. So it's been an interesting evolution. I didn't really know what would evolve in the course of these 17 years, but I know more about it now than I did when we started.
Absolutely, and that's quite a large group of healthcare professionals. You've got multiple locations now too, don't you?
In 2000, of course, we started here at this location in Rocky Mount.
And we're in the old community hospital, Life Care.
Right. And fortunately, there was space available for us to land when we moved from the other clinic. And the facility was owned by Nash Healthcare Systems, and they leased us space here. And in 2004, we decided that some of our services might be extended to other locations, and we started in Nashville, where we added a nice facility in the Food Line Shopping Center at that location. And then I was aware of a location in Zebulon, which we also opened in 2004. And then the third location was Mill Branch, across from Jack's Grocery on Highway 97 near Sharpsburg. And so we had a big growth at that point in time. We also, I'm not exactly sure, maybe 10 plus years ago, began to do some oncology work in Lewisburg. At that time, the hospital, Franklin Memorial, was operational, and we offered oncology services there. Subsequent to the closure of that hospital, we've continued to offer services there, but it's trended more toward primary care since the hospital closed. And then in 2010, we took over an existing practice of a retiring physician in Wilson, Dr. Dudley Anderson. And we continued to do the work that he had started in hematology and oncology, but it has also evolved into a primary care type of operation.
Well, given the great need for primary care, especially in underserved areas like in Eastern North Carolina, it sounds like you have really put a lot of clinics in strategic places to provide services that people might not be able to get otherwise.
Well, a if you look at Rocky Mount itself, it's on the eastern edge of Nash County, and it's a pretty good distance to the western side of the county. So by being in Nashville, where the physicians were aging out and ultimately retiring, and the need for our county seat to have physicians, we thought that would be a good location to go. And in the western edge of Nash County, or the eastern edge of Wake County, Zebulon was in a pretty good location, we felt like. And also the area from Sharpsburg and the surrounding area, Elm City, we thought that the location across from Jack's Grocery would be a good location to start. And we figured that Food Line had done all the demographics, and if they were able to operate a grocery store, then hopefully we could manage a primary practice there. So that's kind of how it evolved.
Well, and I read, Mr. Epps, now if you'll kind of comment on this, y'all are the only you provide in-hospital service. What exactly does that mean?
So as of now, we're the only community medical office that still rounds on our own patients at Nash General Hospital. Obviously, they have a hospitalist service there, but some of the other medical practices, for various reasons, have decided to pull out of the hospital, taking care of their patients. So we're the only office that continues to see our own patients at the hospital. Obviously, we feel like that's a huge advantage for our patients when they are at their most vulnerable being admitted to the hospital. They want to see a familiar face, somebody who has been seeing them, treating them for these various issues, and it allows them, I think, to have a nice continuity of care versus having to start all over with somebody who's fresh to their case. And so we provide 24-hour coverage at Nash General Hospital. We have 2 physicians who are nocturnists, basically. They assume call in the evening hours. They accept admissions to the hospital for our medical practice. And then in the morning, Dr. Crocker and Dr. Emanuel assume care, and they round on the patients in the hospital. And then we have a PA who is on call during the daytime hours to admit any of our patients from 7 in the morning basically till 7 in the evening. And that person will go to the emergency room, provide admission orders. The patient will be moved upstairs, and then Dr. Crocker, Dr. Emanuel are available throughout the rest of the day for that care. And then again, the nocturnist will take over the following evening and continue that care there.
And you're right, people do like to see a familiar face.
I think it makes people, again, in that position where, you're sick enough to be admitted to the hospital, it's always nice to be able to see somebody who's familiar with you, knows your care. Maybe in Dr. Crocker's case has been seeing them for 30 plus years, or even in my case, a few years. It's
many years. How long have you been here?
So this June will be my 13th year with the practice. This was my one and only position out of PA school. Dr. Crocker and I had an arrangement worked out before I went to PA school, and I felt I knew a little bit about the practice. My wife has worked here a little bit longer than I have, and felt it was a great practice. I could tell it was going to be growing and successfully growing under Dr. Crocker's leadership, and so I wanted to be a part of that. And so I hopefully have contributed something over the 13 years to the growth of the practice.
Absolutely. Would you like to comment on that,
Well,
Dr.
no doubt
Crocker?
that he has been a substantial part of this operation, and it's interesting to watch young people grow and mature, and he is as fine as they get in the mid-level world, and provides excellent care, and he's just getting started. He's going to keep going.
Well, based on Dr. Crocker, not that he's senior, but he's been practicing for quite a while. If you follow in his footsteps, I was talking to your wife recently, and she commented, I think your father practiced well into his 90s.
Actually, that was my uncle.
Your uncle. So, but in the family, the genes. So she said, "Oh, he's not quitting for a long time."
Yeah.
So that should be reassuring. Dr. Crocker, when did y'all begin to be so involved with taking care of patients in nursing homes too? I would think that was a real need out there. I saw quite a broad geographic area that y'all provide medical care.
Well, it's not easy necessarily to touch people in all the locations that we extend ourselves to try to do that. It's been my philosophy in general in terms of caring for people that you take care of the community, you take care of all patients of various backgrounds. You also, regardless of the payer type. Well, the nursing home happens to be an area where people need health care just as if they were ambulatory. And so I've always had the philosophy that you take care of them from the time you assume them until they pass away. And so that's a philosophy that has endured through our practice, and it's different. It gives me a chance to roam around through the countryside and see the crops growing and the farmers working, and so it's a way to get out of the office for a little bit. But it's an important part of patients' care, and so when we can contribute, we do.
How many physicians and how many mid-level, meaning physician assistants and I guess nurse practitioners, do y'all have totally in your practice?
There are 14 mid-levels, I think 3 nurse practitioners and 11 physician assistants.
And 6 physicians, I guess.
Correct.
MDs.
Mm-hmm.
And does each location, how do you have to have medical oversight if they're primarily mid-level at the various locations
Right.
throughout? Do they move around at all, or are there committed ones who stay at certain locations?
We do have people committed to each of the locations, but in case of illness or vacations, there's some shifting of providers to fill in the gaps, and it works out very well. But patients like to see the same person as often as they can, and we try to stick with that. But obviously, illness and vacation will interrupt that to some degree, but it's usually not a big issue.
Mr. Epps, let's talk about what's available. What you can do internally. Like it looked like when I was reading about your group that you have purchased a lot of equipment to be able to provide a lot of services without sending them out other places. Talk about some of the equipment, some of the various things you can do here,
Sure.
And then we'll talk about some of the other locations.
Yeah, we'd like to be as freestanding as we can, and so we try to offer as many services as we can. We have the opportunity to perform X-ray imaging at the Mill Branch office and the Nashville office. Also in the Nashville office, we do have a CT scanner that we try to use when appropriate. It's a big, sometimes cost savings and convenience for patients that don't necessarily have to go to the larger facility and be caught up in the weight that they may see there. Here in our office, we do bone density screenings. Typically, those are postmenopausal women, older men who have sustained fractures. We do ultrasounds, including abdominal ultrasounds, carotid ultrasounds, echocardiograms of the heart. What else do we do?
Well, of course, we have a Medicare certified laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
And
What does that mean?
Well, it just means that it's most small labs and small clinics would operate in a level of a CLIA. They are very limited in the number of tests that they can do. We're much broader and have well-certified laboratory personnel to allow us to do most anything that we feel that we can capably do at this location. And the outlying satellites feed their labs into this system. Mm-hmm. Of course, we have a backup reference lab, LabCorp, where we send certain specimens and cultures. Most office labs are not equipped to do microbiology, so we don't attempt to do any extensive microbiology. But so it's really a full-service laboratory, and it was very convenient at this location because the existing hospital here had a lab, and all we had to do was go in and equip it and get good personnel, and it worked out great for us.
And you take care of the patients here too that are in life care. That y'all provide the medical oversight for that, correct?
We do. We have a physician assistant who does the day-to-day rounding up at Life Care for us. Obviously, a physician still has to round behind her and see those patients every day, but she does a fabulous job. She stays up there pretty much most of the day unless her day is interrupted having to go do an admission at the National General Hospital emergency room. But she's there Monday through Friday, pretty much spends most of her day there. We have mid-20s, usually caseload up there. And those are some sick folks. They have typically left a National General Hospital, Vidin, WHIG type facility. So they're not quite ready to go home. Still need a significant amount of acute care. And so that's what we offer there for those patients. And of course on the weekend, again, we offer 24-hour a day, 7 days a week coverage. So another physician assistant and physician will see those patients each and every day. And some of those patients are transferred by our practice from National General Hospital to Life Care Hospital again. Some more of that continuing of care there.
Dr. Crocker, when I was reading about your various clinics strategically put near food lines, and I do think that's really clever. I mean, I hadn't thought about that, but Food Line does do a lot of checking out where the traffic is and where the need is. But it indicated that you really try hard for someone to be seen the day they call. And I think that talk about how that's really unusual because it's hard for people to get in the day they call. If they get sick and wake up and call, it's hard to get in that day often.
Well, illness is not something you can schedule, and it's unpredictable when someone might get ill, and patients want to be seen promptly, and we hope to try to serve them as promptly as we can, and we try it on a same-day basis as much as possible. We don't succeed 100% of the time, but we try to stay pretty close to that philosophy.
Plans for the future? More clinics, more people?
Well, obviously more people, we, as Dr. Crocker said, try to never turn people away. We accept all kinds of different insurance coverages. We want people to come see us. We want to continue to take care of the people in this community. We want to continue to grow. We want to continue to expand.
New locations even perhaps, if they become available, such as the Wilson retirement?
Well, I would say that we are always very open to considering any further expansion. Obviously, that comes with costs and expansion of staff, but certainly we've been pretty aggressive about expanding in the past, and I think if the opportunity presented itself, we certainly would consider that.
And East Carolina has such a good training facility for physician assistants, and it seems like you're doing very well recruiting from there too.
We have probably 5 or 6 at least physician assistants now who have gone through the program. Dr. Crocker was very aggressive early on in this practice, bringing those students in as part of their clinical rotations. I would say maybe one of the first in Rocky Mount to use mid-levels.
Well, certainly fairly early on. There may have been 2 or 3 PAs at very specialty groups in the community. It's kind of interesting how it all happened, Gene. One day I was extremely busy and someone called me. To this day, I don't know who it was. They wanted to know if I would be willing to accept a student from the physician assistant program in East Carolina. And the quickest way to get them off the phone was to say yes. And so it really worked out great because it's been a wonderful experience for us, not only to it serves as a recruiting tool, number one, but number two, to be around young, vibrant people with bright minds whose receptor sites are not completely filled, and they did a joyful group of people to work with. And we not only get them from East Carolina, we get them from, in fact, we have them from even as far away as Philadelphia, Drexel University. In fact, I have a young man with us now who, and he's probably the 3rd or 4th, well, he's probably the 5th person to come from that setting, occasionally from Duke. So we've got a smattering of young people from all around.
I have to say, I'm sitting here smiling, thinking about you. That while Dr. Crocker is talking about the receptors and you respond and your new young minds, The wisdom that you bring, though, has to be really, really helpful, especially early in their career, and that you can share with them. So don't sell yourself short. I think they benefit equally, if not more so, from your longevity. We're going to take a break. And speaking of mid-levels and physician assistants, we've got two young ladies who are going to join us, and then you're going to join us again at the end. So thank you. And now we've got two ladies who we've been bragging about y'all as mid-level providers. We've got April Jones and Temple Walker. You all are physician assistants and both trained at East Carolina in their PA school after you got an undergrad degree, of course. But we talked about how the role of a mid-level is growing tremendously, and Dr. Crocker was talking about how he just learned. He had one come and realized, wow, this is just great. I need more of these. But Ms. Jones, tell us why you were attracted to go into that field. And in reading your background, you had experience in lots and lots of different areas, didn't you?
I did. I chose to go into physician assistant studies after viewing a few different things. I considered nurse practitioner school, medical school, of course, and I landed on physician assistant because I was actually interested in the fact that we could do a lot of similar things of what the medical school could do, medical students could do, doctors could do, and after we graduate and all of that. But the great thing about physician assistants is how flexible we are. We are trained in numerous aspects. We're trained in not only emergency medicine, family practice, outpatient medicine. We're also trained in surgery. We spent a few months doing a rotation in surgery. So I was very interested in the fact that we are very well-rounded and we can practice and serve people with all sorts of needs.
So you don't have to pick an area like I want to go into family practice or pediatrics or something like that, right?
Exactly.
Good.
Usually with medical school, before they pick residency, medical students have to decide which specialty they'd like to go in. And with physician assistants, we didn't have to do that. We're trained multiple different ways and to fill multiple roles.
And was most of your training on campus at East Carolina, which of course they have a wonderful medical center there, or did you have rotations where you went out in clinical settings?
Absolutely. We had rotations all throughout Eastern North Carolina. I had rotations at the Brody School of Medicine and at Vidant Medical Center. I also had a rotation here.
Good.
And a few in Rose Hill, so lots of multiple different locations.
And Ms. Walker, I was reading your graduate of Wesleyan.
I did.
And have done work for EMS.
I did. That's another thing about PAs is before you can even apply to school, you have to have so many patient contact hours. So in order to fulfill that need to apply for PA school, I became an EMT. I volunteered with Stony Creek Fire and Rescue. I got my EMT, and then while I was at Wesleyan, I started working with Nash County EMS to get additional experience so I could apply to PA school. And it was an awesome emergency experience, getting to be able to establish relationships with patients, and I really enjoyed working here.
Right, and I read they gave you a bunch of awards too for the work you did with them, which is great. But are you doing some of everything also?
Absolutely. I really enjoyed my emergency rotation, but working here as a provider, it's family medicine, primary care. So we're able to treat patients in a variety of needs, a variety of different ailments that patients may have. So we can treat women that may have GYN issues. We can treat children that may need routine vaccinations, common cold, common conditions, common blood pressure, diabetes, so a big variety of things that people need.
And I think a lot of places where PAs go don't have the additional support facilities that y'all have here to be able to do things kind of all in one facility, which would be make this an attractive place to work.
Absolutely. We do a lot of preventative services that some patients don't realize that they need, and we have a lot of resources in the community. People with heart problems, osteoporosis for elderly women, we can do their bone density screenings here in the office. If they have heart problems, we can do routine echocardiograms to check on the status and labs, and anything that we don't have is not too far away.
And y'all can see Medicare. Medicare covers anybody who has Medicare can see you all and be y'all can be reimbursed fairly, as well as going to an MD. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And given the demographics in our community, we do have a lot of seniors, and they're more inclined to get sick, I guess, with weakening immune systems. So what's kind of the breakdown in the population of people you see? Do you see many children, or is it primarily adults and older adults?
Primarily at this office, we see a lot of older patients. I know April's going to be working at the Mill branch.
That's correct.
They see a lot of more children.
Pediatrics. Absolutely.
April loves children, and I have a heart for older people. I've also been helping out at some of the nursing homes. So I hope to be able to take over one or help out with some of the other providers at the nursing homes. So we see a variety.
All ages. What's the role of a doctor as far as providing oversight? Not to say that you're not completely competent standalone, but I think there are laws concerning that there always has to be some MD oversight.
Right. By law, we have to have a supervising physician. And so what that means is, starting out, of course, you need a little bit more help than you would further along in your career. So starting out, we would have to meet with our supervising physician approximately once a month for the first 6 months, discussing up-to-date information, research, things like that, just to keep us, all fresh and all knowledgeable. And then after that, we just have to meet with our supervising physician every 6 months. Now, the great thing about this practice and physician's assistant is, although the name physician assistant, you think that we're underneath the MD, but in actuality, we practice alongside the provider, the medical doctor, and we also practice completely autonomous of the provider. So what that means is, whenever you come in to see a physician assistant, you may not see your medical doctor there. You see the physician assistant, who is completely capable of prescribing, diagnosing, treating, and doing all of that for all of your healthcare needs.
And that makes it so much more possible to see somebody when they're mid-level providers like you all. And you probably see a lot. You've been here long enough that you're seeing the same people over and over again, which is a nice bond too.
It is. And that's part of why I chose primary care, is that you get to build a relationship with patients and follow them. And like Temple mentioned, that I was interested in pediatrics, you can kind of follow patients throughout their entire life and help them along and build that relationship.
When you're so young, you can say that. I can follow their whole life. So, thank you so much. Dr. Crocker and Ms. Strapps, you enjoy having all the young, right out of school, enthusiastic, very caring. I mean, I think the male-female mix of your providers is important too for people. Many of us have read in the newspaper that there has been a change as far as ownership of Eastern North Carolina Medical Group. How will that affect us?
So from day-to-day operations, people should not notice any type of change here in the practice. The landscape of healthcare has changed significantly over the last several years, to the point where sometimes as a smaller practice, even though we have multiple locations, it's nice to have financial security, financial backing. And so we decided it was a good time to partner up with a larger group. They would possibly offer us some more ancillary services. We talked about CTs and x-rays and those type of things. If we needed any more type of equipment, we talked about expansion. They certainly would have the means to provide those opportunities for us. As far as any day-to-day operations, on the medical side, there's no changes that anybody should notice. We will continue to run business as usual from that aspect. This transaction was more to do with, on the back end, their willingness and ability to help us on the insurance side, reimbursement, and that type of thing.
Well, good. I'm sure that puts a lot of minds at ease to know that, because Dr. Crocker, you've been a fixture here, not only in the music arena with all what you helped provide you and Brenda through the Tar River Orchestra and Chorus, which we appreciate greatly. I noticed that Wesleyan just honored you and your lovely wife recently in the Hall of Fame. So don't go anywhere. We need you. We need both of y'all. And thank you so much for the health care that you provided to help so many people in our area. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
We appreciate the opportunity.